This episode is sponsored by Unblend.me, an IFS-informed web app for those moments when you need a gentle nudge to pause, slow down, and find the one inside. The Unblend.me app guides you through connecting with your parts to calm your nervous system. It can save your sessions, help you track and revisit parts, and assist you in mapping your system. There's also a voice feature, which I love, so you can close your eyes and be guided. It's not a replacement for therapy, it's a supportive tool whenever you need it. You can try it for free at unblend.me. Find the link in the show notes. Welcome to the One Inside, an Internal Family Systems podcast. I am your host, Tammy Salenberger, and today I am with Max Littman. Max has a new book out that's coming out today, so we're super excited about that. If you're listening, well, obviously this won't be produced anytime soon, but today is October 3rd, 2025, and it is book launch day for Max, which is a really big deal. So let me tell you a little bit about Max. Max is an IFS therapist, consultant, and writer based in San Francisco. His work centers on attunement, attachment, cultural burdens, and relational and neurobiological understandings of trauma. He specializes in working with gay and queer men and also provides mentorship to therapists in private practice, which we're going to talk about later. The other thing that's really cool about Max is I was trying to think of who told me this the other day. Someone random told me that you write these blogs. So you're an author of blogs that are incredibly popular. So it was some random person that didn't even know that you and I were talking. We're like, oh yeah, I read Max's blog the other day, and I was like, oh, that's so funny. So yes, so Max writes blogs that are very popular, and he has a new book out called Internal Family Systems Therapy for Gay and Queer Men, a companion for after coming out. Welcome to the podcast, Max. Let's start where we always start, which is where you are in the world and what you see when you look out your nearest window.
Well, first off, thanks for having me, Tammy. Yeah, so I'm in Oakland, California. We used to live in San Francisco and we moved about 4 years ago. And outside my window is the beautiful Oakland Hills and just lots of trees. If I look down, my neighbor's house is down below us because we're sort of on the top of a slope. My grandfather on my dad's side, he'd be disappointed that I don't know exactly what the tree is out there. He was a nature person. I wanna say it's an oak tree, and I'm not saying that just because it's Oakland, but I think it's an oak tree. So, yeah, that's what I'm seeing currently, a little bit overcast.
So, Max, I want to just start with this incredible line that you gave me, and I just thought it was. I mean, it's a heavy hitter, and I really loved it. So I'm going to start with it. Unburdening. We're just going to jump in. Unburdening offers an opportunity to reclaim a personal, embodied sense of spirituality, one that honors our inherent worth and belonging. By engaging in this healing act, many often reconnect with a sense of divine presence, inner wisdom, and sacred wholeness. So tell me about, for gay and queer men, why the unburdening process is so important and profound.
Like, the first thing that comes to me is, like, yeah, yes, it's important for gay and queer men, um, but I think it's important for everybody. I know I'm so focused on gay and queer men in this book and in my practice and as a gay man, but I guess when I hear that said, it's like, oh, not that we're not so special, but it's just like we're all human. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. But on a more professional focused level, and answering your question, the book focuses on after coming out. So many books and conversations, it seems to me, outside of the gay community is about the process of coming out. And in my personal experience and professionally seeing a lot of gay and queer men, there's just a whole lot still there, not necessarily about internalized homophobia, but more so like feeling of exclusion or not feeling good enough or feeling different or what have you. And then that can carry over into romantic relationships. It can carry over into friendships. It can carry over into relationships with the community at large and in sort of um, group settings with gay and queer men. I'm thinking uh, bar scenes, dating scenes, friendships, like friendships groups and what have you. What feels most important to me about that is being able to clear out what's driving um, our parts harmful behaviors that are harming ourselves and harming our own systems and are harming the community. As I'm saying that, I want to say that with love and compassion too, because they're not just doing harm, obviously. Part of this is um, they're doing what they know to protect us from feeling harm again or feeling harmed again or feeling that same harm that we felt before we may have come out. Yeah, that's what's coming to me right now. I mean, the statement is so huge about unburdening
I know.
that,
I know.
and my personal experience with it is feeling so much more connected to other people and myself. Not so much when that happens, but even remembering like, oh yeah, this used to be a big thing for me and now it's not. Like, for example, coming to terms with my own uh, sexual preferences and sexual identity, which was not done in a IFS kind of way, going inside um, and helping a part like that to unburden. But when I think back on a time where it was just so tight inside of my mind and tight inside of my body, whenever I would be like, oh yeah, I like men, and being afraid to uh, share that outwardly or act on that, it's wild and free and liberating to be like, yeah, I don't that's not even a thought or feeling that crosses my mind anymore, and it's hard to even track when that stopped. So obviously it's not a big deal anymore that I would like write a book, write a book about it and, professionally brand, quote unquote, myself uh, as an IFS therapist that focuses in working with gay and queer men. So
So I have questions about coming out and anything that you would like to share about that and what that was like for you. And yeah, let's do that. And then I do have another question about the unburdening and something that's coming up for me around that.
yeah, my awareness of my attraction to men was pretty, or boys at the time, when I was 12, I want to say. And there was just a general sense of like, I need to keep this hidden. And this was in the 90s. And, I grew up in a pretty conservative neighborhood. My parents were and are still pretty liberal. My dad's a therapist, retired therapist, and my mom's a retired special education teacher. So there was never um, going to be an issue with that. But, the neighborhood we grew up in, or I grew up in, was a lot of Mormon families. So there was pretty outwardly um, gay is not good kind of
Mhm.
stuff. So anyway, as I started to be aware of that, and parts of me kind of kept that hidden for a really long time until I was like 24, I want to say. And slowly, eventually, started coming out to people. A really good friend of mine, who I'm still really good friends with, um, sent her an email, or I had an email sent to myself. I went over to her house, and I'm like, "Can you just read this?" Because I didn't want to do it face to face, with my mouth, with my voice. And I just sat there and she was reading it and she's crying. She's like, "Oh, can I hug you?" And, so I remember that. And then slowly started coming out to more people. My mom was after that. And for whatever reason, I kind of, I held out on coming out to my dad. I, I think maybe there was no question it wasn't gonna be an issue, but there was just something inside me that was like, "Not yet, not yet, not yet." And I didn't come out to him last, but, um, but he responded really beautifully, where it was such a relief for me. Like, I'm still picturing where that was happening in his old place, um, in Midtown Sacramento. And, he was in a rocking chair, I wanna say, and, I told him what was going on, and he's just tears started streaming down his face, and I was, like, so relieved, and, I wasn't laughing, but there was kind of, like, this sort of giddy, relieved energy, and he was like, I'm so sad I didn't know how much you were suffering and how hard this was for you all these years." And I was 24 at the time. Yeah, I mean, that moment is very, um, I mean, it really sticks in my mind. And uh, yeah, so, and then slowly started coming out more to friends and to family. Funny story about my grandmother, who's now deceased on my dad's side. I had sent an email out before family Hanukkah that same year. So that would have been 2010 or 2011. And everybody had read it, but she hadn't. Um, so, and she was being brought by, my, cousin, who's actually, an IFS therapist, and he trained with Dick in the early 2000s, I wanna say. So my first, awareness of IFS came through him. And, anyway, so he was, like, running up to my aunt's house, and he was like, "Your grandmother doesn't know, your grandmother doesn't know, don't say anything, don't say anything." Like, everybody knew all the way throughout Hanukkah, and she didn't, and then she only found out later on that week or something. But as I understand it was harder for her. Um, I'm not exactly sure why. Was pretty liberal as well, but from a different generation. So, um, but yeah, that's funny story with that. And then eventually just started being out generally publicly because that wasn't immediate either. Where I was out to close family and what have you, but then eventually came the point of like, oh, okay. Um, so it's okay it feels okay and safe to, um, you know, be out in various ways, um, publicly. Um, and, um, yeah, I mean, it was just sort of a gradual unburdening as I was kind of around communities that just were completely accepting. And the other
Yeah, I'm
thing I guess I
curious.
should mention is, after I
Mhm.
came out, I moved to San Francisco.
So
So, from Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is pretty gay friendly too, but San Francisco is sort of like feels like the original Mecca. Um, so that, being in that environment, I think helped that gradually release rather than it be this kind of one-off, um, witnessing, redoing, retrieving, unburdening.
Yeah. One of the things that you talk about is there's this, I think this comes back to the beautiful unburdening statement, is that there's a lack of internal wisdom, like access to internal wisdom, and a lack of external guidance. So there's not as much like sex education, supportive peers, trusted adults, and I can imagine. So yeah, and I can even imagine, right? This is you being in California, like for all the people that live in many other states and many other places around the world, that there's not even a chance of that. And so I was thinking about. So I guess I want to talk about that a little bit, about this lack of internal wisdom, for gay and queer men, kind of more so, or not more so, but just for this population, the more, I'm gonna say more so, a lack of internal wisdom, a lack of external guidance. So, I want you to talk about that, and then I'm gonna hold this idea of, given the intensity of that, I feel like tells me the intensity of, like, reclaiming a spiritual, like, inner wisdom, sacred wholeness, divine presence. Like, I feel like that's makes it even more powerful when we think of what can be reclaimed and unburdening
Yeah.
when we kind of start off with this.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. And another big one. So, guidance. So, this is interesting because I was as we were talking about unburdening and my parts that were, holding burdens around, being gay or being attracted to men. I mean, I still have that part. It has a different burden now.
Hmm.
Like, I call it my teen part, um, or teenager. There are still aspects um, of sexuality, of, sex, of attraction, of, just various things that he is not still not comfortable with, and I just call it teen without guidance. So
Oh,
there's, that's been my own personal experience, and that's been sort of, uh, I've been aware of that one for maybe the past 9 months or something? I mean, I know it's been there, but I haven't had as much clarity about it until, uh, more recently. And shout out to Patty Rich on that. I haven't worked with her directly, but sort of opened the doors to that, just, that, you know, we can be self-led and in sexuality and in sex, and there can be really great work and important work in terms of unburdening in that area. Um, so that that feels like her putting her work out there about this eventually led me to my own trailhead. Um, so so that's what I think about, and I think about there was just no um, sex education um, for gay men when I was growing up. I think that's probably still true. Like it's hard for me to imagine, um, middle schools and high schools, um, teaching this sort of stuff of like, STDs, HIV/AIDS, PrEP, um, uh, you know, sexual health practices, how to have satisfying and safe sex, consent. I'm sure these things are happening um, to some degree um, for straight people, but even that I'm not so sure
right,
is
right,
depending on where you are.
right.
Um, that's true. I mean, I barely remember my sex education classes that were straight oriented. I mean, I remember the classroom it was in, and I do think I remember a cucumber. But definitely there was not gay sex being covered there. So yeah, so that's part of what I'm talking about. And the other thing is having um, role models.
Right.
And I know that was true for my young part. Role models either on screen or in the community, or like a older brother, or or whatever it is. I'm sure this doesn't happen all the time in the straight community or the heterosexual community. When I say straight, I feel like even though I know it's not, I feel like I'm saying a slur. Yeah, they're just role models, in the media or in the community or in one's personal life, being like, "Oh, it's normal to have these feelings," or, "Oh, if you're gonna have sex, make sure you're gonna do these things," or, "Did you ask for consent?" Or, whatever it is. I mean, I absolutely did not have that when, I was growing up, and I get the impression that that's true for most gay men. I mean, growing up in Western culture, I should say, or in the
Mm.
United States. I'm not sure um, how it is abroad and in various places.
And I was thinking about, yeah, like where I learned, from my friends or from like what everybody was talking about or what it just sort of you pick up this stuff. And so I can't imagine like having like being attracted to men and then not being able to talk about that or not talking about that. And then there's no one also is talking about what do you do about that or how do you do
Yeah.
that? And then I'm guessing there is this internal not punishment, but I'm wondering also what's happening to you internally when it's like then something's wrong with me, or I'm not like everybody else, or sort of all of that internal stuff that
Yeah.
that really pushes against the idea that you have inner wisdom, divine presence, sacred wholeness, that's who you are. So you kind of grow up with this who I am
Yeah.
is bad or
Yeah.
wrong or something.
Yeah. It makes me think of the confidence C of the 8 C's, of just being like, "Oh, I know my truth. I know, who and what I'm attracted to. Um, I know what my boundaries are," and being, like, okay with it, and being like, "Okay, so, um, uh, I don't need other people's validation, or, I don't have to follow their rules about this. Yes, it's still important, we all need belonging is a really important need, I think about, Daniel Siegel's book a lot on the Enneagram of, the basic psychological needs being agency, bonding, and, what's the last one? Certainty. Um, and and the bonding one, like, it's a need, so, we can't ignore that, but, when we're unburdened internally, it can be a little bit more palatable of like, "Oh, other people are not saying this is okay, but I know inside deeply that this is okay. This is who I am, and, um, it there is nothing bad about it."
Yeah. Well, Max, as an Enneagram 3, just like I am, we are in the bonding 2, 3s, and 4s. So bonding and connection is going to be even more important. I mean, it's agency bonding, certainty is important to everybody, but we're in that B, the bonding part. And also, so it's not just bonding, but also identity is really important to us. And so that just came into my head like, wow, so there is this absence of bonding in a way that would feel attuned to you. And then there's also this identity, not just in, you know, but I like who I am, like who am I is going to be again more important to those heart center types, 2, 3s, and 4s.
Branching off of that a little bit, um, this is what and I think I cover this in the book to a certain degree, but definitely shows up with my clients is, my gay and queer clients, is sort of like my part, that teen without guidance. Um, I'm sure each client has different flavors of that, but then it leads to stuff in current relationships where, like, without that guidance, it's like, "Oh, we didn't know it was okay to have open relationships," or, "We didn't know that it was, you know, that it didn't need to be this one person, and then you just go to that one person immediately after you come out." That's something I,
Mm,
notice often is people who come to me for therapy that, are still with the person um, that was sort of their first love, that the moment that they came out, it's like, "Oh, this is my person," and then not having any other relationships, which
mm,
sometimes goes fine, sometimes doesn't, so I don't wanna make it seem like pathologize that, but it
right.
is a interesting phenomena, that I think, tracks to burden sometimes of,
Mm.
I need to hold on to this because maybe I'm not going to get anything else.
Yeah, the people in the straight world think that too.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's in being dating and having some of my friends date, that definitely this comes up a lot is like, well, if you find someone that's halfly decent, grab onto them quickly because it's the only one you're gonna get. Otherwise, you're gonna be alone forever, you know?
Well, I mean, this brings up an interesting point because open relationships and non-monogamous relationships are I think, much more commonplace in the gay community and queer community than in the straight community. I mean, I talk about that in the book too, where there's a whole chapter on it. I mean, I've had a good handful of folks working individually. I don't do couples or multiple people, as somebody is I'm borrowing this from another IFS therapist, too many nervous systems in the room at one time,
Mm,
um, for me.
mhm.
Uh, but, yeah, so, So this is where the thing comes in, where so many gay men, because of not having role models and not being safe, whether perceived or real, to come out, whether that be physically unsafe or psychologically unsafe, um, there's stunted development because in it's a part that gets sort of stuck in that stage. Like for
Right,
me, it's that teen, right?
right,
Of not getting the opportunity to explore sexuality and
right.
relationships and what have you. So I find often with with gay men, that's sort of what non-monogamous relationships are so important and work really well, um, and help various systems, um, just sort of be, and unburden sometimes, because you know, it's difficult, but when done well enough and with respect and with, self-leadership, non-monogamous relationships can just be really beautiful because you can still have that close companionship with somebody and which can be really important. Like I hear my husband speaking in the other room working. Um, that helps so much on unburdening a lot of stuff for me is just him having a secure attachment style and being really consistent with me. So um, so yeah, that can really help those parts who still want and need to move through those stages of sexual development and sexual intimacy and, novelty and exploration. Um, and they actually get to do it rather than being exiled. Um,
Right, right. Hmm.
does that make sense?
It does, it does. I mean, I had this conversation with my mom the other day about my niece who's the same age as my son, who's 14, and so she's had a couple different boyfriends, like, nothing crazy, and my mom is like, "Well, she's not gonna marry him," and I'm like, "Yeah, but she needs the practice, right? The practice of who like, from middle school on, right? The practice of who do I like and what do I like?" And so that makes a lot of sense that you're like, "We didn't get that, and we didn't get that," and so there needs to be a little bit more openness or a little bit more open relationships, so you kind of finding out, "What do I like? What do I not like?" Like, things that we would've learned, like, developmentally like, we learned that kind of middle
Right.
school, high school developmentally.
Right.
Does
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
track? Okay,
Well,
okay.
it does. Yeah. Even though I kind of extended into the early 20s too. Yeah.
Totally, yes, yeah. Yeah.
And, some people, uh, some people, talk and walk, faster than others. So I like to think about that too in terms of, everybody's on their own timeline with that. But,
100%, yeah.
when exiling happens internally and there are external forces that reinforce that, um, then it's, and then it's not so, you know, um, uh, abstract and okay.
Right, 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 that makes sense to me. So we're gonna have to run off of this and head over to our Substack to do our extended interview. I feel like we have so much more to talk about, but people can grab your book, which is what they should do. Not to giving people shoulds, but go ahead and buy Max's book if you want more from Max. And I know he's just beginning the podcast circuit, so you're going to be able to hear him on all the great podcasts. So that's going to be super exciting. Max, why don't we end the podcast with where we always end, which is if you had to do something different in your life, like a different career, what would you do instead of what you do now?
If I was independently wealthy, then I would be a filmmaker. Yeah, I, studied film in bachelor's and, in my bachelor's program and loved doing that. Um, and it was not so, um, positive a culture in the film industry. So I left that. But if I had my own money, just to be able to make my own stuff, then, um, that's what I would do.
I love it. I love it. Thanks, Max. And so, where can people find out more about you and what you do and just connect with you?
Yeah. So my website, which is my name.com, maxlittman.com, Maxlittman. And yeah, I
I was
saw,
like, yep, that's right.
I, it's there's a ring to it. Yeah. So a link to purchase my book is there. I mean, you can find it on Amazon, internationally anywhere, in print and ebook. IFS Therapy for Gay and Queer Men. And yeah, my blog posts are also on my website. So
Your famous blog
staying
posts.
staying active for that. Yeah, apparently people have been commenting on that more lately, and just randomly I've been out and they've been like, "Oh, you're the blog guy." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Wow. Yeah. So it'll be really interesting when
Yeah,
your book's out there and you're like, oh, yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you, Max. Thanks for talking. And for people listening, we're going to head over to the Substack, the One Inside Substack page for our extended interview with Max. So head over there to listen. But thank you for being on today, Max. This is great. Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you left a rating, a review, a like, comment, share with your family, your friends. That would mean so much to me. My book is available at your favorite independent bookstore or on Amazon. You can visit my website, tammysallenberger.com, or you can download a free Get to Know a Should part of you. You can follow me at IFS Tammy on Instagram and at The One Inside on Facebook and on YouTube. Jeff Schrum co-produces The One Inside, and I am forever grateful for Jeff. Also thankful for Jack Rudin for creating the music, and just thank you for listening. 6 seasons, over 1 million downloads. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you in this community. I'll see you next time.